So the main heating for the cabin is the oil-fired heater in the engineering space. This is the Alta 80 oil furnace. Let me take the cover off here and show you a little bit what we're talking about. So I think you can see there. This has been an absolute godsend at the cabin. It's simple. It reminds me of working on like an old Chevy that you pretty much can, with a little bit of internet knowledge, you can go in here and fix about any part of this. So that's very helpful when you're in a remote cabin. So I want to talk a little bit about some of all this piping here that's going on. So it kind of starts with the supply, which happens right here. And then the supply is going to run across. This feed is going to go out to the underneath the cabin. And then it's going to go off to the ductwork inside the cabin. And then you have another supply line that goes here. And you have one more that goes down here. Now, I will tell you that this one goes up by the windows, the front windows. I think that's this one over here is the front right window as you're looking out towards the deck. And it's just underneath the window. I believe this is the other one that goes over to the left side window. So if you look behind the ottomans, you'll see there on the floor, there'll be two grates there. Now this one is going to go over to a couple of other areas. This one heads over to the dining area off the kitchen. If you look at the base there, you'll see that on the floor next to the windows, you'll see one on each side of the windows there. And then it also goes further on down to the guest bedroom. And then finally, and then there's one more in the hallway, just as you get into the mudroom of the main part of the cabin. There's also an opening underneath the bathroom cabinet in the downstairs main bathroom area. So you got everything pretty much covered in the main cabin area. I'll talk about the other augment heating that I have in the cabin when we get to that point. Now, return side, so the air coming back, it's got three places that it pulls. So the return's going to come in. You can see the main line right here where it comes in. This is pulling from, and then you'll also see it right down here. This down here is actually the main line coming in. It pulls from three different areas. If you're standing looking north or looking at the wood stove in the great room, just before you go up the stairs on the right, you'll see about a 18-inch by 2-foot grate on the floor, and exactly opposite of it on the other side, just before you go into the kitchen dining area, you'll see another grate behind the standalone chair that's over there, the easy chair that sits right over at the edge of the great room. The other return is inside the guest bedroom behind the door. So when you open up the door, step in and look behind it on the floor, you'll see. So the reason why I tell you that is it's important if you want good circulation to not close the guest door necessarily, because if you leave that guest bedroom door open, it's going to pull air into the hallway and create better circulation for the heat. Okay, so a return spot up here. It comes down, goes to into the bottom of the furnace, main heating area. This line is the exhaust, and I'll talk about that in a second. Gets heated, comes up the stack, and goes out those directions. So there's this odd thing right here. This is it's a whole home humidifier. So a lot of times, particularly with the extremely cold winters, you get the air can get quite dry. We've in the past we've used like portable humidifiers, like push around humidifiers. In fact, there's one under the cabin that's quite large. It's actually made for about a 3,000 square or 2,000 square foot home, but it sounds like a jet taking off. And I don't know how effective it is at raising the humidity. So I can talk about this for a second. Oops, let me move this over here real quick so I don't kick it again. So this is what's called the April Air 500. And the way this works, it's quite ingenious, is it pulls air off the return side of the furnace, the main furnace working. And whoops, hold on a second. I'm going to shut that off while I'm talking. I'll turn it back on. So it pulls air from the return side of the furnace, and it takes it into this humidifier unit. This humidifier unit, as you notice, it feeds the actual return on the main stack supply side from the furnace. What this does is it takes water. There's a water line coming across up here that actually comes out of the hot water heater. And so hot water is supplied, think of it like this old swamp coolers. Hot water is supplied into a filtration system inside here. As that hot water comes down, the hot air from the supply side coming back from the cabin goes through it and back into the supply line pushing out. So in effect, what this is doing is it's creating moist, warm air going into the feed, the supply line from the furnace. And of course, then that comes up, comes out of the floor vents. And the idea is it brings the humidity up. One of the side pieces for this is that you'll see here, there's a drip line. So this is a drip line because it does feed water from the top, comes down through a filtration that air pushes through. But then down here, this line I have feeding into this condensation overflow pump. All right, so what happens is the condensate that's overflow from the humidifier will come into this small holding tank. This small holding tank is always monitoring what's happening. So if you get water coming in here and this starts to go up, when it hits a certain level, it's going to activate a pump. It's going to pump out this line, which tees into the overflow line for the water siphoner. This green line then goes up, out, and it goes across underneath the cabin into the main sewer drain. So when the water comes up, it engages. It'll take the water level back down, and then it waits until it comes up again, and then it engages again. So it never gets very full. It never gets very full inside of this container. There's also an emergency overflow that if it gets too high, it'll shut off this, and at the same time, it can shut off the valve to the humidifier as well. All right, so there's a summer-winter setting for the humidifier because in the summertime, you don't need the humidifier. You get plenty of humidity. You usually want your humidity at least 30%. Comfort level is between 30 and 40% for most people. Some people like it more. Some people like it less. So in the wintertime, especially when you're running the wood stove in lieu of running the oil heater, you're going to really dry that air out. So in the wintertime or in the summertime, there's a valve, and the valve is right here. And when you flip it to this position, it's basically wintertime. So that opens up a stop valve that allows the air to come through and into the humidifier. When you shut it down, it's basically closing off this. So this piece right here becomes a dead space then. So nothing's coming through here. So always remember to open that up in the winter when you want to use it. Otherwise, you won't be pushing air through that at all. The other big thing is the valve. So I have this label here. This is a humidifier supply. You open it 3 turns in the winter and you close it off in the summer. So this is just a valve, a tap valve on the hot water. This is the hot water supply right back into the cabin. So this just takes basically 1, I would say 2, maybe 3 turns. Now you've opened up hot water to this line, but this isn't automatically running into the humidifier. So the way this works is the humidifier has to be on. And so the humidifier, when it has a demand, just like with heat, it's gonna open up an electronic switch on the backside of this humidifier. You're gonna have hot water coming from here. It's gonna run down. If there's any overflow, if you have a lot of overflow coming down this line, and you notice that, then you may want to turn this valve back a little bit. You'll have to sort of play with it. I'd say 3 turns open, but maybe it's 2.5, maybe it's 2. You'll see. You don't want constant flowing coming through this here. But this line will turn on and off by demand based on a humidifier or humidistat control that's up in the main cabin. So when we go up there, I'll talk about the control. But essentially what the control does is the control will measure the humidity in the air. You target it and say, I want 33% humidity. So as the furnace is running, it will continue to put warm, moist air into the furnace to run until the humidity reaches its level, and then it will send a command back down to turn off the electronic switch for this. So this doesn't continually run, just like right now it's not running at all because I have the humidifier off. So I'm going to secure this again. Summer, you don't need it. Okay. All right. So that pretty much should explain what's going on here with the humidifier. There's a small line right here, and you see the blue line and the black line. Well, this small line is actually coming down into this box right here because it takes power from this transformer to run the water switch inside of here, and it'll turn on and off depending on what your settings are upstairs. So you'll get the hang of it. So there's 2 things you're doing to remotely control, and these are on a wall. I'll show them to you when we get up there. But one thing, there's an upper unit that is controlling the temperature, the on and off, and the temperature setting for the oil furnace. And you can set up as complex of heating schedules as you want. And then you're also controlling the humidity unless you have it turned off. And I will tell you that I only when it gets very dry do I use the humidifier, but it's a godsend because there's a lot of stuff that happens. And also it really helps the wood, I think, not to get too dried out inside of the cabin as well. So it keeps it moist because there's nothing but wood inside.